She lived in fear as if she were always running from someone or from herself. He, a millionaire who just wanted to understand why she hid so much until he saw the first scar. If this story caught your attention, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. Stay tuned. There was something unsettling about the Blackwood mansion. It wasn't just the silence that filled the marble corridors, nor the cold gleam of polished surfaces that reflected the ocean like a mirror of solitude. It was the feeling that time there had stopped, suspended between grief and the absence of any hope for the future. Nathan Blackwood, at 35, heir to one of the country's largest fortunes, inhabited that modern palace in Malibu with the resignation of someone who no longer expected anything from life. Since the premature death of his wife Sophia 3 years earlier, Nathan had become a kind of elegant ghost among the glass and steel columns of the residence. His days followed a surgical routine: calculated meetings in the office on the 20th floor of the Blackwood building in downtown Los Angeles, business lunches where he smiled without joy, and solitary returns to the mansion where he dined alone before the panoramic view of the beach. The nights were the worst. He walked through the empty wings of the house, observing the paintings Sophia had chosen, the furniture she had touched, the spaces that were once filled with her crystalline laughter. Nathan controlled everything: companies, investments, employees, even his own emotions. He had learned that showing vulnerability was a luxury that men like him couldn't afford. Since childhood, he had been molded to lead, to decide, to never hesitate. But inside, he felt like a sophisticated automaton, executing functions without real purpose. The financial empire grew, profits multiplied, but he remained empty, numbed by his own competence. The Blackwood mansion was an architectural work of art. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls offered a stunning view of the ocean, while the interior blended Italian design furniture with contemporary American art. Everything there exuded refinement and melancholy. The 16 bedrooms remained empty. The living rooms echoed Nathan's solitary footsteps, and the infinity pool that merged with the marine horizon never received visitors. It was a palace made for grand parties and intense social life, but for years had served only as a luxurious mausoleum for one man's solitude. On that stuffy March morning, when the heat of the Southern California summer still insisted on making its presence felt, Nathan was in the mansion's office reviewing contracts when Mrs. Wilson, the housekeeper who had run the house for more than a decade, knocked on the door. She was a robust woman, with grey hair always tied in an impeccable bun, who treated Nathan with the perfect mix of respect and maternal affection. "Mr. Nathan," she said, adjusting her embroidered apron, "the new employee has arrived. The young woman who will help with cleaning the main wings." Nathan raised his eyes from the papers, vaguely interested. Employee turnover was common. Many felt uncomfortable with the melancholic atmosphere of the house. Others simply didn't adapt to the rigor and discretion required. "She seems like a frightened girl," continued Mrs. Wilson, with that maternal tone she used when something worried her. "Skinny, too quiet. But she has good references from the agency." Nathan nodded distractedly and returned to the documents. There were more urgent matters to resolve: the acquisition of a new technology company, the expansion of business to the East Coast, decisions that would move millions. Household staff were Mrs. Wilson's responsibility. He trusted her judgment, completely and rarely involved himself with day-to-day household matters. But something in the housekeeper's worried tone kept echoing in his mind, even after she left the office. It was only in the late afternoon, when Nathan went out for his daily walk on the veranda that surrounded the pool, that he saw her for the first time. Lily. She was crouched next to the vertical garden that occupied one of the exterior walls, watering the ornamental plants with excessive care. She was thin, almost fragile, with brown hair tied in a simple ponytail and skin that seemed never to have seen the sun. She wore an impeccable uniform, a long-sleeved white blouse and dark pants, but there was something about her that seemed not to belong to that place of opulence. Nathan stopped a few meters away, observing her work. There was an almost obsessive precision in her movements, as if each gesture was calculated not to disturb the surrounding environment. When she turned slightly and their gazes crossed for an instant, Nathan felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Genuine curiosity. Her eyes were large, dark, but there was a shadow in them that he couldn't decipher. Was it fear? Sadness? Before he could analyze it better, Lily quickly lowered her head and concentrated again on the plants, as if his presence were an error to be corrected. In the following weeks, Nathan found himself observing Lily more than he would like to admit. There was something disconcerting about the way she moved through the house, always silent, always efficient, but with a caution that bordered on fear. It was as if she tried to occupy the least possible space in the world, making herself almost invisible. Even under the scorching heat of Southern California, she never took off her jacket or rolled up her sleeves. She sweated in silence but kept every inch of skin covered. Nathan began to notice small details that others would ignore. The way Lily startled when she heard male footsteps approaching, how her shoulders tensed every time someone spoke a little louder, the way she obsessively cleaned each surface, as if perfection were a matter of survival. And there was something in her eyes, an old sadness that seemed to have roots too deep for her age. One afternoon, while Nathan was working on the veranda with a view of the sea, Lily appeared to clean the side tables. She moved with millimetric precision, avoiding any eye contact. Nathan pretended to be concentrated on the financial reports, but was actually observing her from the corner of his eye. When she leaned over to reach a more distant vase, the sleeve of her blouse rose just a few inches, revealing part of her wrist. What Nathan saw made him freeze. Marks. They weren't accidental scratches or small injuries from domestic work. They were scars, some lighter, others still with traces of faded purple. Marks that told a story that Nathan didn't want to imagine, but that his mind insisted on reconstructing. Lily noticed his gaze and, in a sudden movement, pulled her sleeve down, completely covering her wrist. Her cheeks flushed with shame, and she murmured an almost inaudible apology before quickly leaving the veranda. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. The image of those marks remained etched in his mind like a brand of hot iron. He had grown up in a world where problems were solved with money, influence, or power. But here was something he couldn't buy, control, or resolve with a phone call. It was genuine human pain, raw, real. And for the first time in years, Nathan felt his armor of indifference begin to crack. The next day, he called Mrs. Wilson to his office. The housekeeper arrived with that worried maternal expression that Nathan knew so well. "The girl, Lily," he said, trying to sound casual. "You said she came from an agency. What kind of references did she bring?" Mrs. Wilson adjusted her apron, a gesture she always made when she was uncomfortable. "Few, to be honest, Mr. Nathan. The agency said she didn't have much previous experience, but that she was dedicated and reliable." "She doesn't talk much about herself," Nathan insisted. He wanted to know where Lily came from, who she lived with, what her story was. Mrs. Wilson hesitated before answering. "She mentioned that she was raised by an uncle after her parents died, said she never had much contact with other people. It seems it was an isolated upbringing." The word isolated echoed in Nathan's mind like an alarm bell. What kind of isolation would leave a young woman with so much fear of the world? Driven by a restlessness he couldn't name, Nathan decided to conduct a discreet investigation. He used his contacts to discover more about Lily Davis. That was the name that appeared on her documents. What he discovered deeply disturbed him. Lily had been raised by Frank Davis, her deceased mother's brother, in a house in the suburbs of Riverside. Frank had an ambiguous reputation in the neighborhood. He appeared respectable, but there were strange rumors. Neighbors reported that Lily was rarely seen, that she didn't attend regular school, and that she seemed to live in seclusion. At 18, Lily had disappeared from her uncle's house. There was no police report, no search, as if she had simply ceased to exist for that family. Nathan discovered that she had survived by doing small domestic jobs, always temporary, always discreet. The agency that had hired her knew only her work capacity, not her personal history. But there were gaps in the investigation, periods of months where Lily seemed to have completely disappeared, addresses that led nowhere. And there was a name that appeared vaguely associated with her in some records: Ryan. No surname, no details, just Ryan, like a shadow in her past. Nathan found himself in an unfamiliar situation. For the first time in years, something was deeply affecting him. It wasn't just compassion or charity. It was something more visceral, more personal. Lily's vulnerability awakened in him a protective instinct that had long been dormant. Since Sophia's death, he had closed himself off to any form of emotional connection, but Lily was managing to penetrate his defenses without even trying. He began to look for excuses to be in the same environments as her. He pretended to work in the library when he knew she would be cleaning there. He remained on the veranda during the hours when she cared for the plants. He didn't speak to her. He still didn't have the courage for that, but his presence became a silent constant in Lily's routine, and she, in turn, seemed to be beginning to notice. Sometimes Nathan caught a glance from her in his direction, too quick to be interpreted, but intense enough to make his heart race. The tension between them grew each day, fed by silences loaded with meaning and looks that lasted a second longer than would be appropriate between employer and employee. The first real encounter between Nathan and Lily happened on a rainy afternoon in April, when an electrical storm swept through Southern California with unusual fury. Nathan was in the mansion's library, a cozy environment with dark wooden shelves that went from floor to ceiling when the light began to fail. Between the flashes of lightning and the deafening noise of thunder, he saw her. Lily was perched on a tall stool, cleaning the highest shelves with precise and almost obsessive movements. Each book was removed, individually cleaned and replaced in the exact position. There was something hypnotic about the way she worked, an absolute concentration that seemed to transport her far away. Nathan observed for a few minutes, leaning against the doorframe, when a particularly strong thunder made the windows vibrate. Lily violently startled, losing her balance on the stool. Nathan moved instinctively, arriving in time to support her before she fell. For a moment she was leaning against his chest, and Nathan could feel how her body trembled, not only from the fright, but from a fear that seemed to come from much deeper. It was like holding an injured bird, too delicate, ready to break at the slightest sudden movement. "Are you all right?" asked Nathan, his voice coming out hoarser than intended. Lily quickly moved away, smoothing her skirt and trying to regain her composure. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwood, the thunder scares me a little." But it wasn't a little. Nathan could see in her eyes that it was genuine terror, a phobia that had roots in some past trauma. "No need to apologize," he said softly. "Why don't you stop working for today? The storm should pass soon." Lily hesitated, as if accepting his suggestion would break some fundamental rule. "I need to finish cleaning the shelves, sir. Mrs. Wilson said that—" Nathan interrupted her with a gentle gesture. "Mrs. Wilson will understand. Come, I'll make some tea." He led her to the living room adjacent to the library, a cozier environment with leather armchairs and a fireplace that was rarely used. Lily sat on the edge of an armchair, as if ready to flee at any moment. While Nathan prepared the tea, a skill he had learned during his college days in London, he observed Lily from the corner of his eye. She kept her hands crossed in her lap, shoulders tense, eyes fixed on the window where lightning cut through the dark sky. With each thunder, she shrank slightly, and Nathan felt a pang in his chest. What kind of experience would leave someone with so much fear of something as natural as a storm? "Here," he said, offering a fine porcelain cup with steaming chamomile tea. "This will help you relax." Lily accepted the cup with both hands, as if it were something precious. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. You didn't have to—" "Nathan," he interrupted. "You can call me Nathan, and of course I had to." She looked at him surprised, as if the simple suggestion of intimacy was shocking. A comfortable silence established itself between them, broken only by the sound of rain and distant thunder. Nathan took the opportunity to observe her better. Lily was younger than he had initially thought, perhaps 22, 23 years old. She had delicate, almost aristocratic features, which contrasted with her simple clothes and shy behavior. There was a subtle beauty in her, the kind of beauty that reveals itself gradually, like a painting that gains depth as you contemplate it. "Have you always been afraid of storms?" asked Nathan, trying to sound casual. Lily hesitated, her fingers tightening around the cup. Since childhood, she finally answered. My uncle used to say that storms were God's punishment, that they came to punish those who had done wrong things. The revelation hit Nathan like a punch in the stomach. What kind of person would use a child's natural fear to control her? Your uncle seems to have been a very rigid person, commented Nathan, carefully choosing his words. Lily laughed, but it was a bitter sound without joy. Rigid is a kind word for what he was. There was a deep pain in those words, layers of suffering that Nathan intuited, but couldn't completely decipher. He wanted to ask more, wanted to understand, but he perceived that Lily was at the limit of her comfort zone. A particularly strong lightning illuminated the room, followed by thunder that made the glass tremble. Lily let out a small moan of fear, and without thinking, Nathan got up and went to her. "May I?" he asked, indicating the space beside her in the armchair. Lily nodded almost imperceptibly. Nathan sat down, maintaining a respectful distance, but close enough for her to feel his presence as something protective, not threatening. "When I was a child," said Nathan, his voice low and calming, "I was afraid of the dark. My mother used to sit by my side during storms and tell me stories about how lightning was just angels bowling in heaven." Lily looked at him with genuine interest for the first time. "Did it work?" "Not always," Nathan smiled, "but her presence did. Sometimes that's all we need, someone to remind us that we're not alone." They stayed like this for almost an hour, talking about small things, the beauty of the rain, the books in the library, the plants in the garden. Lily gradually relaxed, and Nathan discovered that she had a sharp intelligence and an artistic sensitivity that had been repressed, but not destroyed. When the storm finally passed and the sun began to appear between the clouds, something had changed between them. A barrier had fallen, creating a subtle but undeniable intimacy. When Lily stood up to return to work, Nathan noticed that she moved, with less rigidity. "Thank you," she said, and this time her smile was genuine. "For letting me stay. For treating me like a person." The phrase broke Nathan's heart. Like a person. As if this were an exception in her life, not the rule. After that afternoon in the library, something fundamental changed in the dynamic between Nathan and Lily. There was no longer just silent observation. Now, there were small moments of genuine connection. Nathan began to find excuses to talk to her, always respecting her space, always careful not to frighten her. Lily, in turn, seemed less tense in his presence, although she still maintained an instinctive caution that Nathan was beginning to understand better. On a sunny morning in May, he found her on the veranda, caring for the rare orchids that Sophia had planted years before. Lily had a natural ability with plants. Her hands were delicate, precise, and she seemed to intuitively understand what each flower needed. "You have a talent for this," commented Nathan, approaching slowly. Lily smiled shyly, a smile that was still rare, but that appeared more frequently in his presence. "My mother had a small garden," she said, before she died. She taught me that plants feel when someone loves them." Nathan observed how Lily delicately caressed a petal of a white orchid, the same variety that Sophia had loved most. "She must have been a special woman," he said. "She was," Lily replied, her voice laden with longing. "She was kind, always protected me when—" Lily stopped abruptly, as if she had realized she had revealed too much. Nathan noticed the change, but didn't insist. He was learning that Lily opened up in small doses like a flower that blooms slowly. "Do you remember much about her?" asked Nathan softly. Lily nodded, her eyes gaining a distant gleam. "I remember her laugh, the jasmine perfume she wore, how she sang while cooking." A pause. "She died when I was 12. Cancer. After that, everything changed." Nathan felt a tightness in his chest. 12 years. A child who lost her mother and was delivered to an uncle who treated her like a prisoner. In the following days, Nathan began to notice details that previously went unnoticed. Lily never ate at main meals. She always took only small portions when she thought no one was looking. She worked obsessively, as if stopping were dangerous. And there were moments when she simply disappeared, vanishing for hours to reappear with red eyes, as if she had been crying somewhere hidden. One afternoon, Nathan decided to investigate Lily's quarters, not out of malicious curiosity, but out of genuine concern. He asked Mrs. Wilson to show him where she stayed. A small room at the back of the house, simple but clean. "She doesn't have many things," commented Mrs. Wilson. "Just the necessities, said she didn't need much." Nathan observed the Spartan room, a simple bed, a small wardrobe, a wooden table. On the table, some used books and a small notebook. "Does she read a lot?" asked Nathan. "Whenever she can," replied Mrs. Wilson. "Borrows books from the house library, likes poetry and old novels. Intelligent, the girl, but sad, very sad." Nathan asked to stay alone in the room for a moment. There was something there that he needed to understand. It wasn't an invasion of privacy. It was the need to understand the person who was occupying his thoughts so intensely. The notebook was slightly open on the table. Nathan hesitated, knowing that reading Lily's intimate writings would be a violation of her trust. But curiosity and concern spoke louder. The pages contained poems, reflections, fragments of memories. Lily's handwriting was delicate, almost artistic. "Sometimes I think I'm made of glass," said one entry, "that if someone touches me too hard, I'll break into 1,000 pieces. But maybe I've been broken for so long that I've forgotten what it was like to be whole." Nathan felt a lump in his throat as he read those words. There was a poetic depth in Lily's pain that touched him in a visceral way. He continued reading, discovering layers of suffering and resistance that she hid under her facade of a discreet employee. "He said it was love," said another excerpt, "that one day I would understand, that I was special. I almost believed it. Almost." Nathan frowned. Who was he? The uncle? Or was there someone else in her story? Further on, he found a more recent entry. "There's a man here who looks at me as if I were real, as if I mattered. That scares me, more than cruelty. Because what if it's a lie? What if it's just pity? I don't know if I would survive another disappointment." Nathan realized that Lily was referring to him, and the weight of that responsibility hit him full force. She was beginning to trust him, to believe that he could be different. This was both exciting and terrifying. In the final pages of the notebook, Nathan found something that left him cold. Nervous scribbles as if they had been written in a hurry. "He's here. I saw his car on the street. It can't be a coincidence. Ryan never gives up what he considers his. I need to leave before he finds me, before he discovers where I am." Nathan read the entry several times, trying to process the information. Ryan, the mysterious name that had appeared in his investigations. Who was this man? And why was Lily so afraid of him? That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He walked through the corridors of the mansion, thinking about Lily, about her fear, about her vulnerability. For the first time in years, he felt truly connected to another person. It wasn't just physical attraction, although he admitted that Lily awakened desires in him that had long been dormant. It was something deeper, more complex. He wanted to protect her, wanted to heal her wounds, wanted to show her that not all men were predators. But he was also beginning to realize that his feelings for Lily went beyond compassion or protective instinct. He was falling in love, slowly and irreversibly, with a woman who carried secrets that could destroy them both. And for the first time since Sophia's death, Nathan felt truly alive, dangerously and intensely alive. The discovery of Lily's notebook changed everything for Nathan. In the following nights, he found himself obsessed with the idea that someone named Ryan represented a real threat to her. Using his resources and contacts, Nathan initiated a deeper investigation. What he discovered deeply disturbed him. Ryan Mitchell, 38 years old, a man with a dubious history who presented himself as a consultant in different areas. There were police records for harassment accusations that never held up, relationships with young women that ended mysteriously, and an impressive ability to reinvent his identity whenever necessary. Even more alarming, Ryan had arrived in Los Angeles 2 weeks earlier, and was establishing himself in Malibu with documents from a legal consulting office. Nathan discovered that he had rented an apartment just 10 blocks from the Blackwood mansion. It wasn't a coincidence. Ryan was hunting Lily and had come dangerously close. That morning, Nathan was in his office when Mrs. Wilson entered with a worried expression. "Mr. Nathan, there's a man outside asking about female employees of the house. Said he's a lawyer and is looking for a young woman for family inheritance matters." Nathan's blood froze. What kind of man? Well-dressed, educated, but there's something in his eyes that I don't like. Said he can come back later if necessary. Nathan immediately stood up. "Where is Lily now?" "In the back garden, taking care of the new seedlings." "Don't let that man enter the property for any reason. If he comes back, call me immediately." Mrs. Wilson nodded, perceiving the seriousness in Nathan's voice. He quickly left in the direction of the garden, his heart beating rapidly. He found Lily crouched next to a rose bed, her hands dirty with soil, completely absorbed in the work. There was something almost meditative about the way she cared for the plants, as if it were her way of finding peace. Nathan approached slowly, not wanting to frighten her. "Lily," he said softly. She raised her eyes, and Nathan saw something. That alarmed him, a tension that wasn't there the previous morning. "I need to talk to you about something important." Lily stood up, cleaning her hands on her apron. "If it's about my work, I can improve." "No," Nathan interrupted. "It's about someone who might be looking for you, someone named Ryan." Lily's reaction was immediate and devastating. All color disappeared from her face. She staggered slightly, and her hands began to tremble uncontrollably. "No," she whispered, her voice broken. "He can't be here. I was so careful." Nathan approached her, his protective instincts on high alert. "Lily, tell me about him. Who is Ryan?" She desperately shook her head, tears beginning to stream down her face. "I can't. If I talk about him, he'll know. He always knows." Nathan gently took her hands, feeling how they trembled. "You're safe here. I won't let anyone hurt you." But Lily moved away, nervously agitating her hands. "You don't understand. Ryan isn't like other people. He knows how to destroy everything you love. He's known me since I was 16. The revelation hit Nathan like a shot. 16 years. A child. "What did he do to you?" The question came out harsher than Nathan intended, and Lily winced as if she had been struck. "He said he loved me," Lily began, her voice barely audible. After things got bad at home, Ryan appeared. He was handsome, charming, treated me like a princess. Said he would take me away from there, that we would start a new life together." Nathan felt an anger growing in his chest, but kept his expression controlled, knowing that any sign of aggression could make Lily close up again. "But he didn't free me," continued Lily, her words coming out in sobs. "He took me to an apartment, but it was just a different prison, more beautiful but still a prison. He controlled everything, when I could go out, who I could talk to, what I could eat, and when I questioned, when I tried to resist." Lily unconsciously raised the sleeve of her blouse, revealing an older scar on her forearm. "He said it was because he loved me too much to let me go." Nathan felt a murderous fury growing inside him. All the pieces of the puzzle were fitting together. Lily's fear, her scars, her difficulty in trusting. Ryan wasn't just an abusive ex-boyfriend. He was a predator who had captured a vulnerable teenager and transformed her into his personal property. "How did you manage to get out?" asked Nathan, trying to keep his voice calm. "Fire," said Lily simply. "One night he had drunk more than normal and passed out. I poured alcohol in the room and lit a match. I didn't want to hurt him, just create a distraction to escape. But the fire spread faster than I expected." She was violently trembling now. "He almost died, and now he has that against me. If he finds me, he'll turn me in to the police for attempted homicide." Nathan finally understood the extent of Lily's terror. Ryan had not only abused her, he had created a situation where she couldn't turn to authorities without incriminating herself. It was a perfect psychological prison. "Lily, look at me," said Nathan, gently holding her face between his hands. You are not guilty of anything. You were a child trying to save yourself from a monster." For a moment they stood there looking into each other's eyes. Nathan could see years of pain and fear in Lily's dark eyes, but also something new, a spark of hope, as if she were beginning to believe that maybe she wasn't condemned to run forever. "I won't let him touch you," said Nathan, his voice laden with an intensity that surprised them both. "Never again." In that moment, something changed between them. It was no longer just compassion or attraction. It was a deep, visceral connection that transcended social differences and circumstances. Nathan leaned slightly, and Lily didn't move away. On the contrary, she moved closer, as if his presence were a safe harbor amid the storm of her life. "Nathan," she whispered, and it was the first time she pronounced his name with such intimacy. There was a vulnerability in that whisper, but also a trust that she didn't offer easily. Nathan felt as if he were holding something precious and fragile, something that could break if he weren't careful. But he also felt an iron determination growing inside him. Ryan wasn't going to touch Lily, not while Nathan had something to say about it. In the days following the revelation about Ryan, Nathan became a silent guardian. He discreetly increased the mansion's security, hired a private investigator to monitor Ryan's movements, and made sure that Lily was never alone in the external areas of the property. But what changed most was the intensity of the connection between them. It was as if the sharing of that devastating secret had knocked down the last barriers between employer and employee, revealing two people who recognized each other in each other's vulnerability. Lily, for her part, seemed to be fighting against conflicting emotions. Nathan could see in her eyes a mixture of gratitude, fear, and something deeper that neither dared to name. She began to seek his company more, finding excuses to be in the same environments as him. They talked about books, about the plants in the garden, about music. Nathan discovered that Lily had a sharp intelligence and an artistic sensitivity that had been suffocated but not destroyed by the years of abuse. One afternoon, while Nathan was working on the veranda with a view of the sea, Lily appeared with an iced passion fruit tea that she had prepared especially for him. "I thought you might be thirsty," she said, still alternating between the formal and the intimate unconsciously. Nathan accepted the glass, his fingers briefly brushing against hers. It was an innocent touch, but it sent an electric current through both of them. "Lily," said Nathan, placing the glass on the table, "I want you to know that you can stay here for as long as you need. This is your home now." She looked at him, with an expression difficult to decipher. "Why are you doing this for me? I'm just an employee. You don't really know me." Nathan stood up, slowly approaching her. "I know you enough to know that you are brave, intelligent, and much stronger than you imagine, and you're not just an employee. You never were." The tension between them was almost palpable. Nathan could see the conflict in Lily's eyes, the desire to trust, to give in, fighting against years of conditioning that taught her that men were dangerous, that love was synonymous with pain. "Nathan," she whispered, "I'm afraid." "Of what?" "Of believing that this is real, of discovering that it's just pity or kindness. I wouldn't survive another disappointment." Nathan slowly raised his hand, giving her time to move away if she wanted. When Lily didn't retreat, he delicately caressed her face, his thumb tracing the line of her cheek. "This isn't pity," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "And you're not a charity project. You are the first person in years who makes me feel truly alive." For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Nathan could feel Lily's accelerated breathing, see the conflict in her eyes giving way to something deeper. She leaned slightly toward him, like a flower seeking the sun. And then, in an impulse that surprised them both, it was Lily who closed the distance between them. The kiss was hesitant at first, almost reverent. Lily kissed like someone who had forgotten that intimacy could be gentle, that touch could be protection instead of threat. Nathan responded with a tenderness he didn't know he possessed, his hands holding her face as if she were made of crystal. When they separated, both were trembling. Lily began, but Nathan silenced her with a soft touch on her lips. "You don't need to explain anything. You don't need to apologize for feeling." They stayed there, embraced, watching the sunset. Satinged the sky orange and pink. It was a moment of peace that both knew to be precious and perhaps temporary, but the peace was broken that same night. Nathan was in his office when he received a call from his private investigator. "Mr. Blackwood, we have a problem. Ryan Mitchell isn't just a common predator. My investigation revealed connections with your family that you need to know about." Nathan felt a chill. "What kind of connections?" "He is the illegitimate brother of Sophia Blackwood, your late wife. The illegitimate son of her father with a domestic employee. He was raised away from the family but always knew of his kinship. And, sir, he has been investigating your family for years. The approach to Lily may not have been a coincidence." Nathan remained silent for a long moment, processing the devastating information. Ryan wasn't just Lily's tormentor. He had connections to Nathan's own past. "Continue investigating," he said finally. "I need to know exactly what he wants." He hung up the phone with his hands trembling with anger. The revelation changed everything. Ryan wasn't just hunting Lily out of obsession. There was a larger plan in play, a revenge that involved the Blackwood family. Nathan realized that he had dangerously underestimated his adversary. Ryan wasn't just a predator, he was an intelligent, calculating predator with resources and motivations that went far beyond possessing Lily. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He walked through the corridors of the mansion, thinking about how to protect Lily from a threat that was more complex than he had imagined. He passed in front of her room and noticed a sliver of light under the door. He knocked softly. "Come in," came Lily's muffled voice. She was sitting on the bed, hugging her knees, clearly also unable to sleep. "Are you okay?" asked Nathan. Lily shook her head. "I had a nightmare. Ryan found me and you couldn't protect me." Nathan sat on the edge of the bed, maintaining a respectful distance. "That's not going to happen, I promise." "How can you be so sure?" Lily asked, her voice small in the darkness of the room. Nathan hesitated, debating whether he should tell her about the discovery of the family connection. He decided that she deserved to know the truth. "Because now I know that Ryan isn't just after you. He has a larger agenda, and that gives me an advantage to anticipate him." Lily looked at him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "What did you discover?" Nathan told her. About the family connection, observing how Lily's expression changed from confusion to horror, and finally to a determination that he hadn't seen before. "So I'm just a piece in his game," she said, but there was no self-pity in her voice. There was anger. "He used me to get to you." "Maybe," admitted Nathan, "but that doesn't make your feelings less real, nor mine." He extended his hand to her, and Lily took it without hesitation. "We'll face him together, not as victims, but as people who refuse to be manipulated by a psychopath." For the first time since learning of Ryan's return, Lily smiled. It was a small smile, but there was a strength in it that Nathan recognized as the true Lily, not the broken woman that Ryan had tried to create, but the brave survivor who had risked everything to free herself. The following week brought a new and intense intimacy between Nathan and Lily. It was as if the knowledge about the true nature of Ryan's threat had released something in both of them, the need to fully live the present, knowing that the future was uncertain. Nathan cancelled several business meetings, something unthinkable in his previous routine, to spend more time with Lily. They walked along the mansion's private beach during sunset, talked for hours in the library, and discovered layers of each other that had remained hidden for years. Lily was flourishing under Nathan's genuine attention. Her posture had changed. She no longer shrank when he entered a room, didn't avert her gaze when they talked. On the contrary, her eyes sought his with an intensity that made Nathan's heart race. She had begun to wear less covering clothes, short-sleeved dresses that Nathan had discreetly bought for her, always respecting her limitations, but encouraging her to feel beautiful. One night, after an intimate dinner on the veranda, where Nathan had personally cooked a shrimp risotto, a skill he had learned during his college years in London, Lily did something that completely surprised him. She stood up from the table, approached him and, without words, slowly began to unbutton her blouse. "Lily," Nathan whispered, his voice hoarse. "Are you sure?" "I want you to see me," she said, her voice trembling slightly but determined. "I want you to see who I really am. All the scars, all the marks, if you still want me after that." Nathan interrupted her with a deep kiss, his hands gently holding her face. "I want you, all of you. Each scar tells a story of survival. And I love each one of them because they made you who you are." When Lily let her blouse fall, revealing not only the old scars that Nathan already knew, but others that she had hidden, marks on her shoulder, a burn on the side of her ribs that was clearly from the fire she had caused to escape, Nathan felt a mixture of anger and tenderness that almost knocked him down. Each mark was proof of Lily's strength, of her refusal to be completely destroyed. "You are beautiful," said Nathan, delicately tracing a scar on her shoulder. "Not despite these marks, but including them. They are part of the brave woman I love." It was the first time he had said the word love out loud, and Lily inhaled deeply upon hearing it. "You love me?" she asked, as if she couldn't believe it. "Madly," replied Nathan, "completely, unconditionally." The night that followed was of an intimacy that transcended the physical. Nathan adored every inch of Lily's skin with a reverence that made her cry, not from pain but from joy for finally understanding the difference between being taken and being loved. It was as if he was erasing years of trauma with each gentle caress, each whisper of love, each moment of absolute tenderness. But their happiness was brutally interrupted the following morning. Nathan woke up with Lily still sleeping in his arms, her hair spread across the pillow, an expression of peace that he rarely saw on her face. He was watching her sleep when his phone vibrated with a message. The number was unknown, but the content made his blood freeze. "Good night you had. Too bad it's the last, Ryan." Nathan carefully got up to not wake Lily and went to the window. Down below, across the street, a man was leaning against a black car looking directly at the mansion. Even from a distance, Nathan could feel the arrogance in his posture. Ryan had revealed himself, was marking territory, making it clear that he knew exactly what was happening between Nathan and Lily. Another message arrived. "She's mine, Blackwood. Always has been. You're just borrowing her. And about our pending conversation about the family, I'm sure Sophia left some interesting things for you. I'll come for Lily at 6 p.m. I hope she's ready." Nathan felt a murderous fury grow in his chest. Ryan wasn't just threatening Lily, he was insinuating that he knew secrets about Sophia. Nathan gently woke Lily. When she saw the expression on his face, she immediately knew something was wrong. "He made contact," said Nathan, showing the messages. Lily read with her face paling with each word. "He won't stop," she whispered. "Nathan, maybe it's better if I go. If I stay, he'll destroy you too." "No," said Nathan, with a firmness that admitted no discussion. "We're not running anymore. It's time to face him." He picked up the phone and made a call to his personal lawyer. "Mark, I need you to come here immediately. Bring all the documents that Sophia left, especially those that you said were too delicate for me to see right after her death. It's time for me to know the whole truth." While they waited for the lawyer to arrive, Nathan and Lily prepared for what could be the final confrontation. Nathan discreetly contacted his personal security guards, asking them to be on standby. Lily, in turn, made a decision that surprised them both. "I want to go to the police," she said. "I want to tell them everything about Ryan, about what he did to me, about the threats." Nathan looked at her worried. "Lily, you yourself said that he has the fire against you." "I was a child fleeing from a predator," replied Lily with a new determination in her voice. "Any court would understand that, and if he uses that against me, at least he'll be publicly exposed. I can't live in fear anymore." Nathan felt immense pride in her. The terrified woman who had arrived at his house had transformed into a warrior. Nathan's lawyer, Mark Johnson, arrived in the middle of the afternoon carrying a voluminous folder. He was a man in his 50s with grey hair who had known the Blackwood family for decades. "Nathan," he said, clearly uncomfortable, "there are things in these documents that Sophia made me promise to reveal only if it was absolutely necessary. Are you sure you want to know?" I am, replied Nathan, holding Lily's hand. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. Mark opened the folder and removed a sealed letter with Sophia's elegant handwriting. She told me that if a man named Ryan ever appeared claiming anything related to the family, I should give you this. Nathan opened the letter with trembling hands. Sophia's handwriting was unmistakable. My love, if you're reading this, it means that my half-brother has finally found the courage to come after what he thinks belongs to him. Ryan is my father's son with a maid. But there's more. He killed my father. We couldn't prove it at the time, but I have hidden evidence. He was after the inheritance, and when Dad refused to legally recognize him, Ryan slowly poisoned him. I knew, but I was afraid. Forgive me for never telling you. The evidence is in the bank vault. Use it to protect our family. The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan looked at Lily, who had paled upon understanding the magnitude of what they were facing. Ryan wasn't just a sexual predator, he was a murderer. And now they knew that he wouldn't hesitate to kill again to get what he wanted. It's over, said Nathan, his voice laden with a cold determination. Ryan isn't going to intimidate anyone anymore. Lily, do you still want to go to the police? She nodded, but now with a strength that came not only from her own courage, but from the certainty that she had Nathan by her side. Let's go together, she said. It's time for this nightmare to end. The trip to the Malibu police station was a more complex process than Nathan and Lily had anticipated. Detective Paul Morrison, an experienced 50-year-old man who had already dealt with cases involving powerful families in California, listened attentively to Lily's account of the years of captivity and abuse. Nathan remained by her side throughout the entire testimony, holding her hand in the most difficult moments, when Lily needed to relive the traumas to make the complaint official. Miss Davis, said the detective after hearing everything, what you're reporting are very serious crimes: unlawful imprisonment, rape, bodily harm, threats. And now we have evidence that the same man may be involved in the murder of Mr. William Blackwood. He looked at Nathan. Mr. Blackwood, the evidence that your wife left will need to be examined, but if it's authentic, we're talking about an extremely dangerous criminal. Nathan delivered a copy of Sophia's letter and informed the location of the bank vault where the evidence was kept. Detective, Ryan Mitchell isn't just a common predator. He's calculating, intelligent, and has resources. He has also made direct threats against me and against Lily. The detective nodded gravely. We'll issue a preventive arrest warrant, but I need to warn you, men like Ryan don't surrender easily. You need to be extremely careful. When they left the police station, the sun was already setting over Malibu. Nathan had organized a discreet escort of private security guards, but Lily still felt exposed, vulnerable. Do you think we did the right thing? She asked as they entered Nathan's armored car. Absolutely, he replied, kissing her hand. We're not going to live in fear anymore. Ryan lost his power over you the moment you decided to speak. But their relief was prematurely interrupted. When they arrived at the mansion, they found Mrs. Wilson at the door, visibly disturbed. Mr. Nathan, that man was here, the one who said he was a lawyer, but this time he didn't ask anything. He just said he would return at 9 o'clock tonight, and that it would be better if Miss Lily were waiting. Nathan felt a chill. Mrs. Wilson, take the other employees away. Today everyone goes home early. As the mansion emptied, Nathan activated the entire security system of the property. Surveillance cameras, alarms, direct communication with the security company. Lily was too quiet, and Nathan perceived that she was fighting against the instinct to run again. Lily, look at me, he said, holding her face between his hands. We're not going to run, we're not going to hide, we are stronger than him. At 8:30 at night, the motion sensors of the main gate were activated. Nathan checked the security cameras and saw Ryan Mitchell getting out of a black BMW, wearing an expensive suit and walking toward the mansion with the arrogance of someone who believes they hold all the trumps. He was a disturbingly attractive man, tall, dark hair impeccably combed, features that vaguely resembled Sophia, but with a coldness in his eyes that denounced his true nature. Nathan activated the gate's intercom. This is private property. You are not welcome here. Ryan's laugh echoed through the sound system. "Nathan, my dear brother-in-law, what a lack of hospitality. I'm just here to collect what's mine." His voice was silky, controlled, with a refined California accent that perfectly masked his predatory nature. "Lily doesn't belong to anyone," replied Nathan. "And you're making a mistake by coming here. The police already know everything." Ryan laughed again. "The police? Oh, Nathan, do you really think that a little word from a traumatized little girl will be enough against me? I have excellent lawyers. And you, my dear, have much more to lose than you imagine." Nathan saw Lily approach the intercom. Before he could stop her, she pressed the button. "Ryan," she said, her voice surprisingly firm, "it's over. I'm not afraid of you anymore." There was a pause from the other side, and when Ryan spoke again, his voice had lost all the feigned cordiality. "Lily, my love, you still don't understand. I didn't come here just for you. I came to collect an old debt from the Blackwood family. You were just a delicious bonus along the way." "What do you want?" asked Nathan directly. "Justice," replied Ryan, his voice laden with venom. "William, Blackwood denied me the recognition that was my right. Sophia denied me the place I deserved in the family. And now you, Nathan, will pay for all the sins of the family. But first, Lily comes with me. She has a debt to settle. Attempted homicide, remember?" Nathan felt Lily tremble beside him. But it wasn't fear. It was anger. "The only debt that exists here is the one you have with all the women you destroyed," she said, "and I'm not going to be your victim anymore." Ryan violently hit the gate. "You don't have a choice, Lily. I have evidence of the fire. I have nude photographs of you that I can spread across the internet. I have ways to destroy not only you, but your rich new boyfriend, too." It was at that moment that Nathan realized that Ryan had made a fatal mistake. By making direct threats through the intercom system, everything was being recorded by the security cameras. More importantly, Nathan had connected the system directly to the security center, which in turn had communication with the police. Ryan was incriminating himself live. "Ryan," said Nathan calmly, "you are being recorded. Each threat, each word you said has been registered. The lawyers you mentioned will need miracles to get you out of this one." There was a deadly silence from the other side. Nathan could imagine Ryan processing the fact that he had fallen into a trap. But Ryan wasn't just a psychopath. He was an intelligent psychopath. "It doesn't matter," he finally said, "because I'm not going to play cat and mouse anymore. Lily, you have 10 minutes to leave that mansion, or I come in there and get you, and I guarantee that your little boyfriend won't like what will happen to him." The line went dead. Nathan immediately called Detective Morrison. "He's here. Ryan is in front of my house making direct threats. I need police support now." "We're on our way," replied the detective. "But Nathan, this could take about 20 minutes. Hold tight there." Nathan hung up and looked at Lily. She was pale, but there was a determination in her eyes that he hadn't seen before. "Nathan," she said, "I have an idea. But you need to trust me completely." Nathan looked at her with a mixture of love and dread. "Lily, what are you thinking?" "I'm going to meet him," she said, "but not as a victim, as the woman you taught me I can be." Before Nathan could protest, Lily explained her plan. It was risky, it was audacious, and it required Nathan to fight against all his protective instincts. But it was also the only way to end this once and for all, on their terms, not Ryan's. "Lily, if something goes wrong—" "It won't," she said, kissing him with a passion that contained promise for the future. "I'm not going to run anymore, and neither are you." Lily's plan was both simple and audacious. She would go out to meet Ryan in the mansion's front garden, but not alone. Nathan would stay hidden among the columns of the veranda, with direct communication with security and recording everything on his cell phone. More importantly, Lily would take with her something that Ryan didn't expect, the evidence that Sophia had left about her father's murder. "I'm going to show him who's really in control now," said Lily, her voice firm as she prepared. Nathan admired the transformation in her. The terrified woman who had arrived at his house had transformed into a warrior determined to end her own nightmare. "Lily, if he tries to touch you—" "He won't," she interrupted. Because for the first time, he doesn't have power over me. I have something he wants, and he knows that if he hurts me, he'll never get it. Nathan positioned himself strategically on the veranda, from where he could see the entire front garden, but remained hidden by the marble columns. He activated the recording on his cell phone and tested the wireless communication system that Lily was discreetly carrying. "I love you," he whispered into the microphone, "and I'll be here every second." Lily's response came softly but determined. "I love you too, and I'm going to prove it by ending this today." Lily walked slowly through the garden to the main gate. Ryan observed her from the other side of the bars, his eyes traveling over her body with the sick ownership of always. But something had changed. Lily no longer shrank under his gaze. On the contrary, she faced him directly, her shoulders erect, her chin raised in a gesture of defiance that Nathan recognized as pure courage. "Lily," said Ryan, his voice dripping, "false sweetness, finally came to your senses. I knew you'd come back to me. You always do." He used the same manipulative tone from years ago, but Lily didn't react like the frightened teenager she had been. "I didn't come back to you, Ryan," she said calmly. "I came to offer you a deal." Ryan arched an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "What kind of deal?" Lily raised a sealed envelope, the evidence about Sophia's father's murder. "I know you're not just after me. You want money, recognition, revenge against the Blackwood family. I can give you information that's worth much more than anything you imagine you can get by blackmailing me." Ryan's eyes shone with interest. It was exactly the reaction that Lily expected, his greed speaking louder than his obsession with her. "What kind of information?" "Where Sophia hid the evidence that you killed her father," said Lily, observing how Ryan's face instantly paled. "Yes, Ryan, I know everything. About the slow poisoning, about how you approached the family expecting inheritance, about how you killed the old man when he refused to recognize you." Ryan tried to maintain his composure, but Nathan could see even from a distance how his hands trembled slightly. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said, but his voice had lost all its previous confidence. "I know exactly what I'm talking about," replied Lily, "and Sophia left everything documented. Recordings, photographs, toxicological analyses. It's all in a bank vault, Ryan, and I know where." "You're lying," said Ryan, but there was desperation in his voice now. "Why would Sophia keep something like that against me? She never had proof." Lily smiled, and Nathan felt pride in the strength he saw in her. "Because Sophia was much smarter than you thought. She suspected you from the beginning, and when her father began to show symptoms of poisoning, she hired private investigators. She has everything, Ryan, absolutely everything." Ryan approached the bars, his fingers closing around the metal with force. "And what do you want in exchange for this information?" "For you to disappear from my life forever," said Lily. "To destroy any photo, any evidence you have against me. To never come near me or Nathan again. In exchange, the evidence about the murder stays buried forever." Nathan observed the scene with a mixture of admiration and tension. Lily was manipulating Ryan with the same calculating coldness that he had used against her for years. But there was a crucial difference. Lily was doing this to free herself, not to destroy someone. "And if I refuse?" asked Ryan. Lily raised her cell phone, showing that she was recording the entire conversation. "Then I hand everything over to the police. The evidence about the murder, this recording where you confess to knowing the details of the crime. Everything." Ryan roared with rage and violently kicked the gate. "You manipulative bitch! You learned well, didn't you?" "I learned. From the best," replied Lily, her voice icy. "But unlike you, I'm using this to free myself, not to enslave someone." Ryan began to pace back and forth, clearly desperate. Nathan could see that he was being cornered, and men like Ryan were more dangerous when backed into a corner. It was then that what Nathan feared most happened. Ryan drew a gun, pointing it at Lily through the bars. "Enough games, Lily. You're coming with me now, or I end you and your rich boyfriend." But Lily didn't retreat. Instead, she stepped forward. "Shoot," she said, her voice firm. "Go ahead. But know that if you kill me, you'll never find out where the evidence is. And Nathan already has copies of everything. Your only chance of not spending the rest of your life in prison is to accept my deal." Nathan was ready to intervene when he heard the sound of sirens approaching. The police had arrived. Ryan heard it too, and the panic in his eyes was evident. He quickly put away the gun, but it was already too late. 3 police cars entered the street, completely surrounding his position. Detective Morrison got out of the first car with his gun in hand. "Ryan Mitchell, you're under arrest." Ryan looked around, realizing he was completely surrounded. His gaze returned to Lily, who was observing him with an expression that took him a few seconds to recognize. Pity, not fear, not hatred. Pity. "You destroyed me," said Ryan, his voice breaking for the first time. "You were mine, Lily. I saved you from that terrible house. I took care of you." Lily slowly shook her head. "You imprisoned me, Ryan. There's a difference between loving someone and possessing them. You never understood that." As the police handcuffed Ryan, he shouted a final threat. "This isn't over, Lily. I'll be back." But his voice no longer had the power of before. It was just the desperation of a predator finally being captured. Nathan ran to Lily as soon as Ryan was placed in the police car. She was trembling, but not from fear, from relief. "It's over," she whispered when he wrapped her in his arms. "It really is over." Nathan kissed her with all the intensity of someone who had almost lost the most important person in his life. "You were amazing," he said. "Brave, intelligent, strong. I'm so proud of you." Detective Morrison approached them. "Miss Davis, what you did was extremely dangerous, but it was also brilliant. We got recordings of direct threats, illegal possession of a weapon, and several other charges. Added to the evidence about the murder that you provided, Ryan Mitchell won't threaten anyone for a long time." As the police cars drove away with Ryan, Lily, and Nathan remained embraced in the garden of the mansion, observing the first truly free dawn of their lives together. The nightmare had ended, and the future, a future they could build together without fear, without shadows from the past, finally began. 6 months later, Lily was on the veranda of the mansion observing the sunset, tinging the ocean gold, when Nathan approached from behind, wrapping her in his arms. It was a scene that repeated almost daily since Ryan's arrest, but that never lost its magic. Lily leaned against Nathan's chest, feeling the solidity of his presence, the security of knowing that she no longer needed to look over her shoulder. Ryan's trial had been a media spectacle that shook high society in Southern California. The evidence left by Sophia, combined with Lily's courageous testimony and the recordings of the threats, resulted in a 25-year prison sentence for murder, unlawful imprisonment, rape, and threats. Throughout the entire process, Nathan remained by Lily's side, his constant presence giving her the strength necessary to relive the traumas in public. But what impressed everyone most was Lily's transformation during the trial. The woman who took the witness stand was no longer the frightened employee who had arrived at the Blackwood mansion. She was an eloquent survivor, determined, who spoke clearly about the abuse suffered without being intimidated by the defense. Lawyers, Nathan had never felt so proud of someone in his entire life. "What are you thinking about?" asked Nathan, gently kissing Lily's neck. She smiled, intertwining her fingers with his. "I was remembering the day I arrived here. If someone had told me that 6 months later I would be like this, in love and free, I wouldn't have believed it." Nathan turned her to face him, his green eyes fixed on hers. "And I was dead inside, living like a ghost in my own house. You brought me back to life, Lily." The change in Lily had been gradual, but profound. She had resumed her studies, taking literature classes at night at a private university that Nathan had insisted on paying for. She discovered she had a talent for writing and had started a blog about overcoming and women's rights that was gaining thousands of followers. More importantly, she had learned to receive love without distrust, to give love without fear, to be touched with tenderness without reliving traumas. Nathan had also changed. The cold and controlled businessman discovered that there was room in his life for spontaneity, for laughter, for a genuine happiness that didn't depend on spreadsheets or quarterly reports. He had transferred much of the daily management of his businesses to trusted partners, choosing to be present in the life he was building with Lily. "Nathan," said Lily, her voice laden with an emotion that he couldn't identify. "There's something I need to tell you." Nathan felt a chill in his stomach. In recent months, he had noticed that Lily sometimes got lost in thoughts, as if she were keeping some secret. "What is it?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Lily smiled, a radiant smile that illuminated her entire face. "I'm writing a book about everything we went through, about how you saved me, but mainly about how I learned to save myself." Nathan looked at her surprised. "Lily, that's wonderful. Why didn't you tell me before?" "Because I wanted to be sure I could finish it," she replied, "and because I wanted it to be a surprise. The book is dedicated to you." Nathan kissed her with a passion that contained months of accumulated love. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered against her lips. "You're going to help other women find their strength." Lily nodded, tears of happiness shining in her eyes. "I want our story to serve as hope for those who are still trapped in darkness." That night, during an intimate dinner that Nathan had personally prepared, he had become an excellent cook in recent months, he caught Lily off guard. "Lily," he said, getting up from the table and kneeling beside her chair. Lily's heart raced when she saw the small velvet box in his hands. "I lived 3 years as a walking dead after Sophia left," said Nathan, his voice choked with emotion. "I thought I would never be able to love someone again. Then you appeared, wounded and frightened, but with an inner strength that fascinated me from the first moment. You taught me that true love isn't possession, it's freedom, it's giving. The loved one wings to fly, knowing that they choose to stay by your side." Nathan opened the box, revealing an engagement ring with a simple but dazzling solitaire diamond. "Lily Davis, will you marry me? Will you build with me a life where love is protection, not prison? Where we can grow together without fear?" Lily was openly crying now, tears of a happiness she had never imagined possible. "Yes," she said, her voice broken with emotion. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Nathan slid the ring onto her finger with trembling hands before standing up and enveloping her in a kiss that sealed the commitment between two souls who had found each other in darkness and chosen to walk together toward the light. 3 months. Later, they married in an intimate ceremony at the mansion itself, with only their closest friends and Mrs. Wilson, who cried throughout the entire ceremony as if Lily were her own daughter. Lily wore a simple but elegant dress, with short sleeves. Her scars were no longer something to hide, but marks of survival that she wore with pride. During the vows, Lily looked into Nathan's eyes and said, "You taught me the difference between being saved and saving myself. You gave me a home, but more importantly, you gave me courage to be myself. I promise to love you not as the fragile woman you met, but as the strong woman you helped me become." Nathan replied, "You taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage. That true love doesn't dominate, it liberates. I promise to love you in every version of yourself, past, present, and future, and to build with you a love that is a safe harbor, never a prison." A year after the wedding, Lily launched her book Free to Love, A Journey of Survival and Rebirth. The book became a national bestseller, inspiring thousands of women to report abuse and seek help. Lily became a respected speaker on women's rights and healthy relationships. Nathan transformed part of the mansion into a support institute for women victims of domestic violence, funded by the foundation they created together. They discovered that their love story was just the beginning. They had a greater mission to help other people find their own freedom. On a golden summer afternoon, 2 years after the wedding, Nathan found Lily in the garden, caring for the orchids, the same ones that Sophia had planted years before. But now the garden was transformed, full of new colors, plants that Lily had chosen, a reflection of how the mansion itself had been reborn. "There's news," said Lily, turning to him with a mysterious smile. Nathan arched an eyebrow, intrigued. "What kind of news?" Lily took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "The kind that arrives in 8 months," she said, observing how Nathan's eyes widened with surprise and joy. Nathan wrapped her in his arms, spinning with her through the garden while she laughed. A free, crystalline laugh that echoed through the mansion like a blessing. They had built more than a love. They had built an entire life based on respect, trust, and a passion that grew each day. As the sun set over Malibu, tinging the sky pink and gold, Nathan and Lily remained embraced in the garden where everything had begun. The mansion that was once a mausoleum of solitude now pulsed with life, love, and the promise of a future where their scars didn't define their limitations, but celebrated their capacity to survive, grow, and love without fears. They had proven that some love stories aren't born from fairy tales, but from the courage to face the monsters of the past and choose every